Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our fourth season, we're looking at Kenneth Branagh's 2011 film, Thor. I'm Matthew Fox from theethicalpanda.com.
And I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Reel Film Podcast.
And today we're talking about minute 25, which begins with Volstagg shouting to run and ends with the ice giving way. Joining us on the show today, sadly for the last time this week, but I believe coming back later in our season,
yes,
is Cass Fredrickson from the Lord of the Rings Minute.
Hello.
Cass, what's kind of been your overall sense of these 5 minutes we've gotten to go into such great detail about?
I will say that I had a lot of fun rewatching it earlier today because it'd been a while since I've seen this first one. But part of the reason why I wanted to be on this first, like the Asgard portion of Thor is because I think I've seen the first 30 minutes of this movie at least 100 times. This was one of my comfort movies when I was going through a bad time. So I would turn it on and then go to sleep. And so I was always kind of awake for the first 30 minutes of this. And then I'd conk out when he was on Earth. So, but I'm actually impressed with what this fight does and how much it communicates to us in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think there's very little dialogue that's been spoken during these 5 minutes. Yet we've had so much to talk about because there's been just really great shots and reactions and special effects. So much has happened. And we'll get into all that just after this quick moment.
Marvel Movie Minute is an independent podcast from True Story FM. We really love doing this show. We have so much fun talking about Thor. It's been a great exploration over the last 3 films and now this one, but it does take time and cost money. Without our members, for whom we are eternally grateful, we could not keep this going. Membership means that we can keep delivering content to you without selling your information and interest through podcast advertising sources. We like our privacy. We know you like your privacy. If you're already a member, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're not, would you please consider becoming one for the season? It only costs $5 per month, or you can get a discounted price if you join at the annual rate. You'll get bonus episodes, early access to shows, access to live streams, stickers, and more. Plus, you get the comfort of knowing that you are supporting this independent podcast production. Visit truestory.fm/Marvel Movie Minute to learn more. Thanks.
So, once more, I feel like this is now going to be the crowning thing we've built up to of Thor's just being not only utterly oblivious, but completely oblivious to the needs of his friends. Because everyone is running, the monster is chasing them, but Thor is just fighting. He is just completely unaware any of this is happening.
He really is just the oblivious fighter at this point. I mean, he knows they're running. He said, then go. So obviously he's kind of sent them on their way, but he's just as much a berserker as that one who charged Loki. It's just he's standing still and letting them come to him, and he's just taking them out. Especially
because one thing I'm thinking about now is, this was before you came on, Cass, but you probably remember it, having seen it so often. Heimdall gave that very important warning of, I will not open the Bifrost if you will bring something with you that will threaten Asgard. I think Heimdall, when he said that, had big Jotun monsters like this very much in mind. And it's hot on their tail until, it falls to the ice at the end. But as they're running, I don't kind of know where they're running to, because they have to know, the Bifrost ain't opening right now.
Well, my sense of what's happening here, and again, this is just my guess. There's a Bifrost landing site, and again, I don't know why Heimdall has to pick one spot, and that's where I pick you up from. That's the only place you can come to, like an airport. I don't get that as far as the Bifrost goes. Why can't he just pick them up from where they are if they call him? I don't completely understand that, but that is my sense of what's actually happening here. They've left the central plaza in the front of Utgard Hall. They're running through the ruins of Utgard, trying to get back to the Bifrost landing site. Again, I just don't understand exactly why, but that's my sense of what they're trying to do.
The thing that doesn't make sense to me, and maybe one of you two can explain it, is Thor is obviously not bored because the frost giants are just running right into his axe. And
his hammer.
Hammer. This time I caught myself. Thank you. Thor is not good enough to be a dwarf by any means. But like, you know, at one point he's even like he's spinning it on the ground and kicking up ice shards, and they're just running. It's almost lemming-like. Is this because the frost giants are just too stupid to think about it? Is it because this is actually the whole plan, is to keep Thor distracted so the beast can hunt down the friends? It just looked kind of ridiculous to me that they're all charging in, having seen all their friends. Like, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again, expecting a different result. They've seen what happens when people charge into Thor, yet they all keep doing it.
Quantity over quality, I think.
Well, but that speaks to Laufey as their king.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he released the Frost Beast to go chase after the bulk of Thor's team, but he, I mean, presumably is still standing up in his, box, kind of observing what's going on. And I would think that he would try to do something else to help the rest of these people, or at least command them to stop and hold, or do something else. It's strange to me.
From like the way that I'm reading it, where Laufey is testing Thor, the limits of what Thor can do, like it's very, pardon the pun, cold-hearted of him to kind of just send all of his men to die in this way. But I think he is very much like seeing like the limits of Thor's power, because he's never encountered Thor before.
And also, I think I want to be careful we don't assume that Laufey is like moving every chess piece on this board. You know, like he kind of did that subtle look he certainly freed the beast. It may be that they all were ready. Like they thought, you know, Thor might come at some point. Let's be ready. But I don't know how much he has control over it versus this just is all of their pent up rage and aggression that he kind of wishes he could control more. Because you're right, it very well could be exactly that, or it could be him being like, "Nope, stop, guys, this is not going to work."
Yeah.
Like, but it does keep Thor from joining the fight against the beast.
Yeah.
Which is important because at the very end, Thor is the one to defeat the beast almost by accident.
Yeah, there will be something that we'll be talking about.
Yeah, next
certainly
time.
In a coming minute.
And so now we get to see the heroes running, and I love this kind of shot, like over. It looks like we're seeing this through Fandrel's eyes as he's like over Volstagg's shoulder, and then Sif is almost hit by the tail. What's kind of your feel on these seconds we get of them all running away and the beast keeping to it almost gets Hogun, it almost gets Sif.
They run really fast. These Warriors 3. They because that beast is like galloping after them, and they manage to stay like ahead of it for most of it. I really like seeing it through Fandrel's eyes, because it's kind of like he's like a bystander in the fight now, so I like that perspective. Plus, he's the only one that's looking backwards, so it's like very convenient for him to be like, it's gaining on us.
And again, it's so Fandrel to just kind of laugh at it. You know, it's like, you know, that's what he's been doing every time we see him in the fight. It's that Errol Flynn style of his.
I really love Josh Dallas as Fandrel. Like, I'm sad that he's like replaced in the sequels, and Zachary Levi does a good job, but like I really like Josh Dallas playing Fandrel.
He does seem like just so perfect for the role.
Yeah.
You know, he's pretty enough to make the Narcissus point make sense. And he's just clearly, I feel like in some ways, like he gets Thor more than most of the rest of them. Which is interesting because he also seems like he's a little bit more contemplative than the rest of them.
Well, to your point, though, I wonder, I don't really know exactly, but I wonder if he signed on to the script because there had been a lot more work for Fandrel to be doing as part of this whole Warriors 3 with the different comedy bits and all that. And I wonder if that's what drew him to the script. And then the fact that they whittled so much of that out and his part became so much more diminished over the course of it. I mean, again, I'm a little frustrated by the Warriors 3 and it largely as to how they're depicted, and I don't have a huge problem with what Brana did, but I can get it as an actor. Like if that was my part and now I'm left like, well, I don't want to continue the part. I'd rather take this TV show because I'm going to have a lot more stuff to do, a bigger part.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's very sensible. And so now we get to see the third special attack that Mjølnir has, that you can, spin it really fast. And not only do you get to kick up ice shards into the eyes of your opponent, but you can then kind of like reach up to the heavens and bring the lightning down, really. I do love this because this is really kind of like, this is his power attack. This is like, you've been holding the button down a long way, charging him up. And this, now I think we really get to see, like, he's not just a guy who can hit people hard. Like, he can literally control, he is the god of lightning and thunder.
I think it's really smart of them to hold that really iconic power back until like minute 25 because, and like, we can see what he can do. We can see what the hammer can do. Like, they're really showing off the effects. I'm really impressed with how good the CG still looks after 10 years for some of this. So I think it's really smart of them to finally be like, okay, here is the lightning. Like, this is the thing that you guys are ostensibly here to see.
It's very cool. And I find it really, I love the way that it looks, that it's like he's pulling the lightning down out of the sky. And the way that he doesn't strike the ground with the head of the hammer. He like brings the hammer straight down and hits the ground with the end of the handle and that's kind of like the way he pulls it down. And I don't know. I find the way that looks just so interesting and fascinating because it seems different. Like, that's not what I would expect, but it actually ends up feeling right, I guess.
Yeah.
When I try doing it, that's what I would have done.
Yeah, I think the shots they do here are all so effective because we kind of mentioned this before, but, leading up to that moment, as we are watching the friends run away and watching the beast chase them, you're still seeing Thor fading into the background, and this is kind of what Anna, you were referencing before, that at this point there's two totally different battles happening. Thor against the frost giants and the beast against his friends. And to me, it just again highlights like that Thor isn't paying attention, but also that like, this is why the friends are in danger, like, because they don't have this, lightning god with them.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Although what he does help them. And I think this is a kind of a really fun moment. The lightning hits the ground. All the frost giants near him get blasted back, which this is one of Marvel's favorite shots, by the way. The number of times like Thor does this or Cap slams his shield into the ground or something and like everyone gets blasted back. But then it sends this just big crack through the ice. The ice starts falling apart and, to Fandor's delight, it seems like the beast is falling through the crack, to fall to its doom. Of course, we might find out that's not the case, but certainly that's what it seems like in that one moment.
I mean, part of me struggles with this. I mean, okay, Thor didn't know how damaged the planet of Jotunheim was.
Right.
Like, he doesn't know that this entire planet is very fragile because the casket of ancient winters has been removed and it's kind of crumbling into space, basically. I don't think that he expected when he called the lightning down to take out the Jotuns that were around him, that it was going to basically send shockwaves across the entire surface of the area. And that I don't think he knew that the planet, or at least this particular point, like, essentially, I don't know if it's hollow, but I mean, there's definitely like a cave system underneath. I don't know if that's part of the damage. I don't really have any sense of that. But that lightning, I mean, it does a lot of damage, and it's tearing everything apart. And I mean, it's entirely possible that the entire Utgard hall could collapse from what he just did, that he could be buried. I mean, it's insane, like, how much damage could potentially be done from him doing this, that could really, I mean, it could lead to a lot more destruction than we're even seeing here. I mean,
for sure.
Insane.
I mean, like, I can't give him credit here for saving his friends. I think that it could have just as easily been that his friends fell through a crevice that opened up.
Yeah.
It is sheer, I think kind of Thor gets by. A lot of lucky things happen to him, but it's sheer dumb luck that he takes out the beast. And at first, there's another scene that the last scene is of, the floor giving way. And you see people who are running, falling. And at first I thought it was the friends, until I noticed that in that shot, you can see 4 people or 5 people much further away continuing to run. So we know it's the friends are getting away. And I just love that shot because it's such a great way of establishing what's happening.
What I didn't realize when you see that shot is that you're like, oh, it's not just the Jotun Beast that's chasing after all of them, but there are, I mean, it seemed like all the frost giants basically were focused on Thor, but you find out, oh no, there are frost giants all over the fields outside of Utgard that are also pursuing them.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's amazing how many frost giants apparently are still around on the planet, because I mean, they're everywhere, and they're all kind of at this point now falling because the planet is kind of falling apart here.
Mhm.
I got to say, though, this is one of these fights that really frustrates me because of how everybody's running. And it seems like the Jotun Beast keeps overtaking them. But then we cut back to them later, and it's like the Jotun Beast is far behind, and it's overtaking them again. And it's like, come on. Like, we saw it catch up already. And I get frustrated with that fight, that style of storytelling here. But I mean, it still looks cool, and as long as you're not thinking about it, I guess it's okay.
As long as you're not analyzing it minute by minute.
Right?
Exactly. Right.
I mean, it definitely feels to me like I love the idea of a Shakespearean-trained actor and director directing an action movie.
Mhm.
But Branagh himself said, like, he doesn't do action movies. This is new for him. And I feel like if there's two parts to this movie, the action scenes or the, like, family dynamic Shakespearean aspects, I'm glad they went with a guy who's more on the family dynamic side. But every now and then, I feel like we get a reminder of this is not a guy who's directed action scenes, you know? Because, like, I think you're right. There's a level of consistency that we've come to expect from these big budget movies that some of these fight scenes just don't really have.
Well, and oftentimes, I mean, you know, for these films, they'll bring on like a second unit director who's handling a lot of this sort of stuff. So it could be that not even the director's fault. It could be that Marvel and Feige and team, they're learning like what sort of what is the sort of second unit director we need to bring on to handle the construction of the action, to make sure that who's also working with Branagh, of course, and the directors, but making sure that it is kind of hitting the standards that they're that we've all come to expect. That being said, I'm really curious to get into stuff like going on in Endgame and watching like through that fight scene and going, none of this makes sense. They were over there, now they're over here.
Who edited this?
At this pace, you get to talk about it in 2040, I think.
Oh my goodness.
Right. Yeah, just a few more years to prep for it.
A lot of movies to go. If you thought taking on Lord of the Rings was a big encounter.
Wow, yeah.
All right, well, so I think that kind of wraps up this minute. There's a couple of like little things that we might want to mention. Andy or Cass, do you have any kind of like last little things to bring up about this minute?
I just kind of was thinking about like, again, how much this fight kind of tells me about all these different characters, like not only their fighting style, but like how they kind of view battle. Like Fandral is always laughing. Like Volstagg is very physical, and like Thor. The big one is Thor doesn't know when to call it quits, right? Like Thor doesn't know when to retreat, and then that is like a big thing in the final set piece of this movie, where he's like, you know, actually being a leader and leading his friends not into trouble, but out of trouble. Because right now all he's doing is leading them into trouble. And he's just like, okay, every person for themselves. Have fun.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And it's funny because as you say, we learn quite a lot about Volstagg and Fandral by how they handle this battle. In an earlier week, we talked about how in a lot of ways, the character of Sif is really kind of disappointing because she's kind of that, like, look, it's a badass warrior and she kicks ass and she's pretty, but she's badass. So don't ever, like, think she's just a, like, fetching young maiden. And that's a personality. Like, they don't actually write anything else to her. And I wish that we'd gotten, as well as from Hogan. Like, I feel like we really get a lot of those two. And maybe Hogan's, like, the quiet, efficient killer, so there's not much to do, but I would have liked if we got a little bit more of him and Sif in this fight.
I don't know that I agree that Sif is like cookie cutter, like, you know, capital strong woman, you know what I mean? Strong female character. But because I think that there is the actress's name is Jamie Alexander, yes?
Yeah.
I think she does a lot of like good stuff with the performance, but I also like, I'm sad that some of the character moments with the Warriors 3 and like her like some of her dialogue gets cut because I was watching the deleted scenes earlier. I understand why the character stuff for like the Warriors 3 and Sif were the first things to go, because it doesn't really further our plot. But I'm always really frustrated when they cut like character moments and stuff, because it's really cool. Like I said, like seeing a warrior woman who is like badass, but she's also like feminine, and she doesn't like, she gets in there, like she's really like in your face about her combat style. So I think, and especially when this came out, I don't think that was the case at the time. I think now, 10 years later, it's kind of like, this could be better. But I think at the time, like I remember really being impressed with Sif and Jane too. But
no, and that's definitely fair. We've talked before about how it's funny. 10 years doesn't seem that long ago, but so much has changed in movie making, especially in MCU making. And we referenced it before, but even just saying like, Sif is not a warrior in the Norse myths. She's Thor's wife. And the worst thing that you can do to her is cut off her hair, because she's very kind of vain about her appearance. So yeah, I do like that. I think for its time, I think this was it was a good step forward, but I think we'd expect more from a strong woman character today.
Well, let's hope, like now with the way that, storytelling has evolved and we've had much better depictions of female heroes on screen. I think Wonder Woman is a great example, that have done a little bit more than just kind of paint that same sort of typical thing. And so, I mean, Sif is going to be back in Thor: Love and Thunder, so here's hoping that they find us a better way to kind of write this character to give us a little more with her in that film.
Especially because I think we've seen this a little bit. We see it more when like Jane comes into the picture later in the movie. Like I said, they're married in Norse mythology. There are a couple of times where Sif gives Thor a look that makes me wonder, like, has she always had a crush, or did they like have a history, and it'd be kind of fun if like that gets explored a little bit more. Not to kind of, I definitely do not want a romantic triangle.
Right, yeah.
Like that's such an awful movie trope, but just to get more of a sense of like, where is Sif coming from,
Well, there is a little bit of that in Dark World.
Yeah, that's true.
Early on with when Frigga's talking to her. So
I'm sorry, you said words about a word. I don't know of any movie by that name. So,
I am a Dark World apologist.
Oh boy,
I love that movie. It's
I think
it's better than Iron Man 2.
Close, very close. But Andy, you may have found one of your hosts for Thor: Dark World, because you ain't getting me on that.
Oh no, really?
I mean, I would do it if you don't mind me basically doing a riff tracks approach to it. Of just like, let's talk about how bad this movie is. I think it's by far the worst, much worse than Iron Man 2.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it's that bad. I kind of like it too. So
I think that Iron Man 2 and Incredible Hulk are both less fun than Dark World.
I'm an Incredible Hulk apologist. I really enjoy that film.
That I'm also a fan of. But yeah, I will happily listen to that podcast and just not contribute and not be a Debbie Downer. So anyway, I think we're pretty far into a slap happy land. So let's wrap this up. Andy, did you have any other kind of last things you wanted to comment on?
The only other thing I had was when the Frost Beast falls off of the crumbling wall there, it has its own little roar that it does as it falls. And I just can't help but think, in some world, this is the Wilhelm scream of Frost Beasts.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Cass. It's been so much fun having you on all week.
Yeah, thank you.
What's one thing that our listeners don't know about you yet that you want them to know in terms of like the kind of stuff you create, or just anything random about you? Or I'm having a lot of fun asking questions that are putting you on the spot without my intention.
Know,
so this has been kind of great.
I'm really bad about talking about myself. And I don't know, but you will know way too much about me if you follow me on Twitter at DarkHeartedRose.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you to all our listeners. Andy, thank you so much for doing so much to help make this happen. And all our listeners, as always, let us know what you think. We love feedback. We love responses. Tell us what you think about this. Love to hear your thoughts. And of course, more than anything, the most important thing, have a nice day.
Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is One Last Ride by Martin Puringer. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, consider doing that for this show.